for the glory of old state, for her founder strong and great, for the future that we wait. Raise the song, raise the song.
Where else would you rather be? I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association. Welcome to the People of Penn State podcast. Each week on the podcast, you can expect to hear the voices of Penn Staters talking about what they're passionate about, and you can expect to feel the pride and the power of the Penn State Network. You can find the People of Penn State podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast app of choice. Subscribe and give us a rating. Ratings and reviews help others find these great stories. And today we have another fantastic story to pass along to you. We're going to talk to the three Penn Staters behind the J2 Spotlight Musical Theater Company, Jamiro, Rob Schneider, and Ben Nissen. So let me tell you a little bit about each of them before we bring them onto the program. Jamiro is the creator and founding president of the Disney Channel and Walt Disney Home Videos. He received his BA in radio and television from Penn State and a master's in mass communications from Syracuse. He is a voting member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. They give out the Oscars, as we all know. He has been honored as a distinguished alumnus by Penn State and was the Vision Fund of America honoree for achievement in entertainment industry. Rob Schneider holds academic appointments at Penn State, New York Film Academy, and Mount Union University, as well as serving as the artistic director for the J2 Spotlight Musical Theater Company and as an original programming producer at Feinstein's 54 Below in New York City. He is the host of the podcast Behind the Curtain, Broadway's Living Legends, Gay Card Revoked, and This Was a Thing. For the past 15 years, Rob has been one of the most prolific leaders in online education in the arts, and he is a proud 2009 MFA graduate of the Pennsylvania State University. And our third guest today, Ben Neeson. Ben has spent several years working in producing, marketing, and publicity in the entertainment industry. He has dozens of Broadway and national tour and international credits to his name. He graduated from Penn State with a BFA in musical theater in 2018. And in May, he will graduate from the University of Alabama's Manderson School of Business with an MS in marketing. Welcome to the People of Penn State podcast. How are you all today?
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for having us.
Doing great. Thank you.
Wonderful. We like to dig in a little bit at the beginning into your origin stories. Jim, I'd like to start with you. How'd you become a Penn State Nittany Lion?
Well, I was a Pittsburgh boy, and I actually applied and got accepted at 6 colleges, but all of them were small. Denison, I think Lafayette, Lehigh, and Penn State. And I decided I wanted to go to a larger place. I wanted more. I came from a very small town outside of Pittsburgh, graduating class of 54, and I wanted the competition of a large university. I wanted the feeling of that kind of a diversity at a large university, and that's why I chose Penn State, which happened to be one of my better decisions.
Rob, how about you?
I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I went to a very small liberal arts college for undergrad. And much like Jim, I wanted something a little bit bigger. And I was really focused on trying to get a master's in directing for the theater. And I love musicals. So I literally Googled MFA directing musical theater. And the first and only thing that popped up was Penn State. And I applied in 2006. They only took one candidate that year, and I was the lucky candidate.
Wow. That's a fantastic story. And Ben, how about you? What led you to Penn State?
So I grew up on the Jersey Shore. I went to Performing Arts High School, and the musical theater program was doing a rounds of recruiting and visiting high schools that they had alum of the program that had gone to those high schools. And so the head of the program, Carrie Lipkin, who is no longer the head, but at the time, he came to our high school to do a master class, and I had already graduated. I was in my gap year, but I came and met him and was interested in the program, and I ended up deciding to audition. It was like one of two schools that I auditioned for, and I stepped on campus before even my audition, and I was like, great, where I'm going to go to school. Like, I love it here, and this is exactly it.
Ben, let's stay with you because you're the most recent grad. Talk a little bit about some of your strongest memories from your time at Penn State. Maybe it's productions you were involved in or some student organizations. What really stands out to you as kind of your strongest Penn State memories?
Yeah. So I was in the musical theater program, which was very much, you didn't have, I would say, as much freedom. It's a very prescribed in the sense of like, these are the classes you're taking for 4 years and you know that going into the program. But something that I really appreciated is while I was there, I realized that I maybe didn't necessarily want to perform. And the Penn State School of Theater was so welcoming and open to that idea, and being willing to like make it work and let me explore everything within theater that I wanted to explore, be it from producing to directing to fight choreographing, which was really awesome. I think my favorite memory though was when my junior year, we in junior studio did a production of Little Women, and my whole class got to do a show together for the first time, working with Susan H. Schulman, who was the head of the MFA directing program at the time as well. And she had directed the show on Broadway. So getting to hear her stories and then recreate it with my class was a really cool, magical experience.
Rob, you mentioned undergraduate at California Lutheran, came to Penn State, much different institution. What are some of your strongest memories from your time as a student?
Seeing more than like 500 people on a campus was a pretty big thing, to be honest with you. Mine though was as a faculty member. In 2012, I was elected the faculty homecoming king, and so my dad flew out from LA to watch me in the parade, and he actually got to see me like go to the middle of Beaver Stadium and stand and wave. But like in perfect fashion, the car that I was in stalled on College Ave, and the football team had to get out and push me all the way up the hill. So me, I was like, I can't get any better than this. I'm the homecoming king, and I'm being pushed by the football team.
That's amazing. Probably the largest crowd you've ever performed in front of, I would imagine.
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Jim, from small town outside of Pittsburgh, you come to Penn State. What are some of your memories from your time here?
Well, the one I'm going to tell you, actually going to surprise you in a way, but it sticks with me the most in terms of the poignancy of how I felt. I love my courses at Penn State. I love so many things there, but my extracurricular activities were my favorite part. WDFM, which at the time was the campus radio station, right, in the Sparks building, and the Penn State Thespians, which were and still are in Schwab Auditorium. And one of the most vivid feelings I have in terms of memory, literally, was walking to Schwab Auditorium for our rehearsals of the plays, the musicals that we were doing. I was a Beta Theta Pi, which is one of the fraternities right on campus on Burroughs Road. And I have such vivid memories of leaving that fraternity in the evening and walking that short walk across Shortleaf Road to Schwab Auditorium. And I can remember, there was a feeling about it. I can remember walking there in the rain and the cold and the snow in the springtime when it was still light outside for a 7 o'clock rehearsal. And there was something about those walks and about the anticipation of what was going to happen in that auditorium for the next 3 or 4 hours, and the feeling of all of that with all the different weather patterns. That's, even though it seems like it's just a walk, it's this most poignant feeling that I have about my time at Penn State.
You know, this podcast, or this episode of the podcast, is actually kind of the personification of one of the things that I love most about my job as the CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association. You know, when people graduate from Penn State, they think that their Penn State connections and their family are going to be those students that they graduated with, right? I had a great time with my classmates, and they're going to be my lifelong friends. And then you go off and you either get involved in a chapter or you get involved in some other ways at Penn State, and your Penn State connections grow, and they grow from Penn Staters. They grow with Penn Staters who were at Penn State at a different time than you were. And people, I'm always struck by the pleasant surprise that people have that when they look back on their journey as a Penn Stater, it includes Penn Staters from across the decades, from across different colleges that studied here. And it's because of the different ways we choose to gather as Nittany Lions. That kind of leads me to my next question. How did the three of you get connected with each other? What is the origin story of the three of you becoming friends and partners?
Well, I guess I'll start because I think I started it. I actually had gone, I've been a musical theater aficionado all my life, obviously, and I had gone to 54 Below, the cabaret in New York, to see a 50th anniversary production of a Broadway musical called The Happy Time. I had seen the original cast with Robert Goulet, and I loved it. And the next day, I called a friend of mine who was in the production named Jimirro and said, who did that? And he said, oh, Rob Schneider, great guy, did that. He gave me his number. I called Rob and invited him to lunch. And I asked him, in essence, over a beautiful 2.5-hour lunch where we talked about all things musical. I still remember that lunch so vividly. It was the Applejack Diner at 55th and Broadway. And I said, Rob, do you want to do some more of these? And he said, sure, I do. And by the end of that lunch, we actually had a handshake to do this project together. And then, to be honest with you, like Rob can go on from here. It was a coincidence, actually, that Rob and I were both Nittany Lions. And of course, he was the one, because he has a connection with that creative community in New York, that brought in all the Penn Staters, which was, for me, was a little bit of an extra bonus because I really wasn't thinking about Penn State. But then Rob happened to go to Penn State, and then he surrounded himself with a lot of Penn State people, first and foremost, including Ben. And that's been like a bonus. I love that. I love seeing these people that went to Penn State. It was a throwback.
Yeah, and to add to that too, it even goes back to, so Rob and I didn't go to Penn State together at the same time. Rob had actually just left or finished teaching at Penn State, on campus at least, as I was coming into school. And we got connected through the School of Theater Alumni Board. My sophomore year, I applied to be a student liaison on the board, and he was the vice president. And we worked on a couple different like festivals and reunions and things like that, bringing alumni to the school and connecting alumni with current students and industry professionals. So we worked closely on that my sophomore year, and he was like, what are you interested in? I was like, I think I maybe want to direct. And he's like, oh, well, come assist for me sometime. And it happened to be that summer he was doing a summer stock Rock of Ages at Millbrook Playhouse, and I assisted him there. And I would say we've probably done like 150 projects together since then. And yeah, I mean, this was a continuation of all of that. That grew into working at 54 Below, where Rob and I did the Happy Time concert together. I got to work there while I was still a student, and spend time with Rob. And I honestly owe everything that I am doing now to Rob and the connection that I made through Penn State.
I could not do anything without Ben. So there you go. But I will say one of the things I'm really proud of with our company, and Jim is right. I think Jim and I talked for about 90 minutes before we even realized we both were Nittany Lions, and then that added like another 2 hours to the conversation as we debated creamery flavors. But for me, it's very important to bring a Penn State connection to the entertainment industry in New York. Our students from all areas of the School of Theater are so brilliant at what they do that it's important for me to make sure that they get showcased and make sure that there's a nice bridge transitioning them from the academic world into the professional world. So as we continue on with our theater company, that to me is an important part of who we are, which is to still keep that Penn State foundation. It unites the three of us.
Rob, I know you're a humble guy, but I want to pause for a minute here and maybe take a little bit of a left turn here. But how does it make you feel to hear the stories you just heard, that a piece of art that you were involved in producing, right, got the president of the Disney Channel, right, so inspired to reach out to you, to now create this magical partnership that the three of you now have? Just maybe share a little bit of what's going on in your mind right now.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I really mean this. I pinch myself every day, and I go, "Is this my life?" Or I'll hear someone like Jim or Ben, and I'm like, "I wonder who this Rob guy is." He's like a lot of fun. No, I'm very lucky. I am absolutely very lucky to be doing what I'm doing, and the fact that people like Jim and Ben trust me enough to collaborate with me is something I will never get over. Never get over. In fact, when the pandemic hit, I think a lot of us felt in the arts community that we're never going to work again. And I thought to myself, but I've done what I wanted to do. I got to work with people like Jim, and I got to work with people like Ben. So even if it ended for me at that point, I was very happy and very satisfied.
This is the People of Penn State podcast. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined by the brain trust behind J2 Spotlight Musical Theater. So let's dive into what J2 Spotlight Musical Theater actually is. It is a production company that produces professional revivals worthy Broadway musicals, and in doing so, provides the opportunity for patrons to revisit shows, and some cases experience them for the first time, and in a lot of ways give aspiring artists, new artists on the scene, their first opportunity to perform some of the classics. Where did the idea? We heard from Jim a little bit about where the idea came from, but talk about how it evolved and shed a little more light on what the project is.
Jim, do you want to expand more on it?
I'll take a shot, Rob. So unlike Rob and Ben, because I'm a little older than they are, I lived through one of the golden ages of the Broadway musical. I grew up with this in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. I was very young when I said the 50s and the 80s. And what interests me, and so all of these musicals resonated with me. I was a professional in that. I was a different part of the entertainment business, but I loved these musicals. I lived in New York. I went to see them. I moved out to LA with Disney. I went back to New York all the time. Never went back there without seeing as many Broadway musicals as I could. And because they resonated with me so much, I really wanted to have an opportunity to bring them to other people, because I grew up with them and loved them so much. And one of the interesting things to me is that even though Ben, for example, especially Ben, graduated when recently, didn't live through this the way I did, he knows all about these musicals. That I know about them because I lived them in my life. I assimilated them as I went through my life. But Ben and Rob both didn't have a chance to see musicals that were done, for instance, in the 60s. And yet they know and love them so much. So in a way, it's validated my belief that these musicals are absolutely worthy and deserve to live on.
Rob, how about you? Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, what's important, I've said this before and I'll say it again, if you love theater, if you love musical theater the same way that, Jim and Ben and I do, if you're only at home and you're listening to the cast recording, you're only getting half of what makes that art so special. Or if you're at home and you're reading the script, you are only getting half of what makes this art so special. If you love Citizen Kane and I've never seen it, you can hand me the DVD. If Ben has never seen the Mona Lisa, I can show him the Mona Lisa. But these theatrical pieces, you need to see them on their feet and experiencing it as a whole artistic entity to understand how special that they are. And so for me, that's a really driving force behind this company, which is not to do Oklahoma and not to do Guys and Dolls. We've seen those a lot of times. So the fact that we're able to present rare pieces of art in their totality is something that's very special and is the driving force for us behind the company. On top of that, we're also introducing New York audiences to new and emerging talent, both on stage and off stage. There's really no other place in New York City right now that's doing what we're doing. There's no place in New York City right now that is so concerned with making sure that a younger generation gets their time on stage and gets their new artistic voices heard. And that's something I'm very proud of.
So let's talk, you've mentioned the pandemic, right? Let's talk a little bit about how that has affected the project.
Well, who wants to talk about our opening 2 years ago?
Well, our class act was our third show of our first season, which was in 2020. And our opening night was actually the day of the shutdown. And so I remember we were like texting each other being like, is the show on? I don't know. Oh, this show's closing today. They're not having a performance. Okay, are we having a performance? And what was it like right before curtain? We decided like we're not doing the show. Everything shut down.
Yeah, 2 hours before curtain, we got a call. So they said, "Don't come in. We'll see you in 2 weeks."
And the other thing about that, I remember that moment so well. Thursday, March 12th, was that at that time, how little we knew. At that time, the big word was 2 weeks to slow the spread. 2 weeks to slow the spread. So we were okay. Well, a couple of weeks from now, we'll be back at Theater Row. Almost 2 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And through those 2 years, right, life went on, right? You all are all individually have full plates. You're very busy, and some of the other projects you're working on. What was it that said, all right, we're coming out of the pandemic, let's give it another try?
Jim?
Yeah, we knew so little. In retrospect, we knew so little. But I remember at first, Rob and I were talking about, well, can we do this in September of 2020? And then it became apparent to me, and I was the one that said, Rob, let's just drop everything and do it next year, which would have been, the winter of 2022. And that's, 2021 fall, and then the winter of 22. And I think that was a good move, because for a while what we were doing, which bothered me a little bit because it was so unsettling, we were kept kicking the can down the road. Should we do it in a month? Should we do it in 2 months? Should we do it in the fall? And finally, I said, let's just stop for a longer period of time, and then we'll maybe be safer to get these back on the stage.
Yeah. And, we're still feeling the impact of it. New York Theater last week only played to 63% capacity of all the Broadway theaters. And that trickles down to us as well. So the most important thing I think that we can have right now is people buying tickets and coming into our home and coming into our theater and experiencing these pieces of art. That's the only thing that's going to get us back up and running again. We've got great shows, but they mean nothing if we don't have people coming to see them to appreciate that. So I'm hoping that a lot of our Penn State family will come out and support us and join us and know that the theater now is safe. And we've had 2 years to really perfect what we started 2 years ago, which is also a nice feeling. The first season for us in a lot of ways was like a laboratory, which is what works, what doesn't work. And then we've had 2 years to implement it. So we're very excited to show that to people.
So you're about to embark on season 2. What can people expect?
Season 2, year 3, right, Jim?
Yeah, that's right.
As Jim likes to call it. Ben, what can people expect?
What can people expect? Well, we're excited. We're bringing back a class act, which famously closed on its opening night on Thursday, March 12th, 2020. So that'll be our first show. Our second show is going to be A Day in Hollywood, A Night in the Ukraine. And then our third show is going to be The Baker's Wife. We're really excited to be reviving or bringing these shows back. And I think Jim can also speak to, in addition to the history component, the Lanyap program, which is offering something extra or a bonus, dare I say, and what that's giving audiences as well to come out to the theater. Jim, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, it's just my way of background. Every company I've ever worked for, CBS, Disney, and my own company, we're companies that have tried to give people everything that we possibly could. Some companies don't do that. They try to get as much from the people without giving back. That's just a business philosophy. I grew up in a world where we wanted to give everybody everything that we possibly could, to give them as much value as we could, to make them happy. We get happy when our customers are happy. And so we came up with this idea of doing a lagniappe, which is the New Orleans term for a little extra bonus. A lot of shows do like talkbacks one time or something like that, cast talkbacks. But I said, why don't we just do this every time? Why don't we have a little program after every production, every show, every performance, where we can give the audience something extra? And my experience of when people see art, it's amazing. They can enjoy it very much, but they don't even know how much they miss. I mean, no matter how much people enjoy their shows, I will guarantee you that they are missing a lot, because that's just the way the human mind works. You can't process all the stuff that's going. So within the lagniappes, if we can enhance the experience, if we can have people walk away from Theater Row having seen the show and this little bonus, and they're happier than they would have been without that lagniappe, it makes me happy. I want our customers to feel, boy, that was the best money I ever spent. Price value relationship, and that's what that's all about. Ben works on that very much. Rob has embraced the idea, and we're excited about that. And by the way, I hope that will continue. I hope that our company, we're just starting really, but I hope that our company will continue to try to do quality things to enhance what it offers to people, to create the best possible experience we can, reaching out beyond just those 90-minute or 2-hour productions. It's part of my philosophy, and I know Rob and Ben and everybody that Rob has surrounded himself with agrees with that. And by the way, when you behave like that as a company, the people who work for you are happier. The people who can feel pride in what they're doing, who think that from the top down, we're trying to do something special, we care about people. When that happens, everybody, including the people who pay to see you, are happier.
Well, and I think that speaks to the value that you're trying to deliver to your patrons. As I was doing some background research, I looked at what you're charging for people to come to these performances. It has to be the most affordable entertainment, Broadway quality entertainment, and you're choosing to give them that little extra, right, to kind of build the value into the experience. So it's they're leaving there with that something extra.
Yeah. And one more thing, I'm so sorry, I just wanted to add on if I can. You asked what can our audience expect this year. One of the things I'm excited by is the 3 shows that we're doing have not been seen in New York since they first premiered. So these are the first New York revivals of these 3 shows. And that's, for our company, that's pretty great. One of the shows was written by the same guy who wrote Wicked. So the fact that we have these big authors that are trusting us so soon out of the gate is something that I think is very special to share with our audiences that you can't get other places.
So I hope this next question isn't maybe too serious to dive into, but I noticed you have selected A Day in Hollywood, A Night in the Ukraine as part of this season. And as I was doing my research, right, the Ukraine is in the news. It's a comedy style. It's in the Marx Brothers style, but it's going to hit as tensions really escalate in that region. There's often an intersection between art and social justice and politics. Is this offering being offered in any way to bring attention to what's going on in that region?
Honestly, no. The show is, like it said, it's called A Night in the Ukraine, but it could have been a night in Japan, a night in Canada. It just happens to be an exotic locale for the Marx Brothers. It's a Marx Brothers movie on stage. And we picked this show in 2020. We picked this 2 years ago, and one of the reasons we wanted to do it was because the show itself is literally escapism from start to finish. The first few lyrics of the show ask the audience, "Do you need a break? So come in here and be with us for 2 hours, and you'll be removed from all the cares of the world." So that's our goal. So no, it's not going to be political. In fact, if it is, I think we're doing our job wrong for this particular show.
And yet, in some ways, it might be the escape that people are looking for away from the current events of the day.
Yeah. That's absolutely correct. Between everything that's going on in the world, politically, socially, economically, the pandemic, we just want people to come and know for 2 hours you're going to be in a safe space. You're going to have a smile on your face from start to finish. We just want you to escape with us. And we feel like that's the best thing that we as artists can be doing at this particular moment.
For students that might happen upon this episode of the podcast, what advice would you give to the 18-year-old version of yourself that's looking to pursue the careers that you've all pursued? Jim, why don't we start with you?
I guess if I had to use one word, it would be passion. I think that if you have passion, if you can find something that you really believe in, if you can pursue a dream with a certain amount of vigor, I think you're going to be better off. In my case, I had a lot of passion for exactly what I was doing. So I can honestly say, although it's a cliche, I never really worked a day in my life because I was so happy doing what I was doing. So I think a passion to find something that you really care about and pursue it is probably the most important thing that you can have.
Ben, how about you? You don't have to think too far back to 18 years old. What advice would you give the 18-year-old version of yourself?
I would say stay curious and celebrate learning. I very much found my way into producing. I didn't really wake up and be like, I think I want to do producing, or I think I want to do marketing. I didn't go to school for marketing, and now I work in marketing. And just kind of leading from one thing to another has brought me to be working with these wonderful people at J2. I was thinking, hey, maybe I want to direct, and then found myself, working on ticket stuff and PR and social media. Is what brought me this. So stay curious and celebrating learnings and being willing to just like try things just to try it and be like, cool, maybe this is something I'm into, and it's okay if it's not, but you can gain something out of it.
Rob?
Mine is, if opportunity isn't knocking, build the door. You can't wait. You can't spend your whole life sitting on the sidelines bemoaning the fact that you never got an opportunity or you never got a chance. You can make your own opportunities. You can create your own artistic experiences for yourself. So for me, that's the big one. If opportunity isn't knocking, build the door. I felt that, these shows were not being presented. And so my feeling was, well, let's build a company that does present them. So that's mine. Nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible.
This is the People of Penn State podcast. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined by the Penn Staters behind the J2 Spotlight Musical Theater. Giving back to Penn State is important to all three of you. Rob and Ben, you've talked about your involvement with the School of Theater Alumni Society. Jim, you've been very supportive of the College of Communications with your professorship and the various other ways that you've been supportive of Penn State. This whole project has kind of serendipitously been a service to other Penn Staters, Penn State students, Penn State alumni. Why is giving back to your alma mater so important to you?
Well, it's important to me because it gave so much to me. I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that, I actually went to college. I went back to Penn State for 3 years and worked on a PhD. I didn't get it because I was too busy running the Penn State thespians at that time again. But I got 8 years of education. 8 years. That was not a trade school. Penn State and Syracuse were not trade schools. So I didn't learn a lot of things that I could apply day to day in my work. But I always felt that the fact that I had such extensive schooling held me in greater stead. I understood the history of broadcasting. I understood the social aspects of broadcasting. I understood the broader ideas behind mass communications. And even though it wasn't a practicum on how to do my job, I always believed that education held me in better stead. And you're right. I mean, I'm a big fan of Marie Harden, the dean of the College of Communications. I'm a massive fan of hers. As a matter of fact, I believe she will be coming to New York to see one of our plays. I don't know if you met her last year, Rob or Ben, but I think she'll be here. She's a wonderful dean, and I'm happy to be associated there. But giving back is easy because I wouldn't have done what I did. I think without those 7 years I spent at Penn State. I mean, if there's any question about it.
Excellent. Rob?
Oh, I just want to echo what Jim was saying, which is, had Penn State not said, yeah, we'll take a chance on you, my life would have had a totally different trajectory that I know would not be as fulfilling as what's happening now. Because somebody at Penn State said, yes, we believe in you. This is why all of these great opportunities are happening for me right now and for our company. So for me, I just want to echo what Jim was saying. It is important to give back because it's given me so much. I would not be the person I am if it was not for someone at Penn State saying, please come join the Nittany Lions, come join our family.
And Ben, how about you?
Echoing the exact same thing, but I mean, truly, like, I would not be doing anything that I'm doing today if it not for the mentorship of alumni of Penn State while I was a current student. Rob being the main person there for that. And if I can give like an ounce of that back and provide opportunities, especially for students like me that maybe are in a specific major, but want to explore other avenues. And I've had a couple like musical theater students assist me on producing projects, or our social media manager is a musical theater graduate who was interested in exploring that as an avenue, to be able to provide that opportunity for Penn State students and alumni I'm happy to continue to do it. And it's all I want to do. And it gives me a lot of energy.
Excellent. We like to have a little bit of fun here at the end of the People of Penn State podcast. We call it our lightning round. We throw a couple quick hitter questions at you. So if you might indulge me, I have a couple for you all. Jim, let's start with you. What was your first Broadway show?
Mr. Wonderful, starring Sammy Davis Jr.
How about you, Ben?
I saw Cats. I was 2, and it was in 1997.
Now you're showing off.
Sorry, I saw the original production of Cats.
And Rob?
Jerry Herman's La Cage aux Folles, and it starred Peter Marshall from Hollywood Squares.
Excellent. Hollywood Squares. That's amazing. Your favorite class at Penn State?
This will surprise. This will be a surprise if you want me to start again. My favorite class didn't have anything to do with theater or mass media. I took a class on Shakespeare where we spent the entire 45 hours, 43 credits, dissecting one Shakespeare play. We happened to be Taming of the Shrew. And that's exactly the kind of thing that you can do when you're an undergraduate. You'll never probably going to do again the rest of your life. And it was worthy of that, But I remember Dr. Rubin. I still remember him, and I just love that show. And it is the kind of thing, while you might have good intentions, that you're not likely to do, for the rest of you're probably not going to ever again spend 45 hours, dissecting one Shakespearean play. So that's the one that I have the most memories of, actually.
Ben?
My favorite class was actually we had an auditions class, which was honestly the most terrifying thing that I ever did, because we would find out like minutes before the class. They'd be like, hi, you're auditioning for this show, go. And you'd have to like flip through your book and be like, I guess I'm singing this. And it was me as like a perfectionist. It was the first time that I really allowed myself to like take a breath and be like, I'm just going to throw this into the room and like see if it sticks. And I remember I sang If You Like Pina Coladas and Get Caught in the Rain, like for an Escape to Margaritaville audition. And it was so bad. I tried to do it like a monologue kind of thing with a very clear other. it just didn't land. And I was like, cool, that's okay. And it was the first time that I was really able to be like, that's okay that didn't work out. Like, just go and try thing. And it's really freed me up to take more risks and chances there. And Rob, I will give you a performance of it.
That's what I was
I saw the face and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll send a video.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I need. The first season actually next year is just Ben doing the Pina Colada song for everybody.
Rob, how about you?
Oh, mine was a script analysis class with a teacher who's no longer there. And my God, she was so brilliant. Her name was Dr. Annie McGregor. And she was just life-changing. Just life-changing.
So, we all know the familiar cheer at Penn State is "We Are." And sometimes we hear that and outside of Happy Valley, and it catches us off guard. What is your most unusual "We Are" moment where you ran into a Penn Stater and made that connection and didn't realize that you shared that in common?
Parry. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I have such a good one for this. I'm sorry, Rob.
Go for it.
Well, I was in the Soviet Union in 1990 when it was still the Soviet Union. And we were riding the Moscow subway. And I remember, of course, I couldn't speak Russian. But I would say, okay, the stop we're going to get off is one where we have an upside down V is the next to the last letter. I was doing it graphically. And on the subway platform, the 3 stops out of Moscow, central Moscow, was somebody wearing a Penn State T-shirt in Moscow in the Soviet Union, 1990. And it turns out the person spoke English. He was an exchange student from Penn State. And I still have a picture of me with that person taken 31 years ago on the Moscow subway. So that's about as far afield as you can get.
That's amazing.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Ben?
I don't have any kind of like international ones or anything like that, but I remember I was randomly working like stage crew for a week for Miss Saigon on Broadway. And I was sitting in like the house head carpenter's office, just like on my phone on like intermission. And I didn't know of any alumni that were like in the show. And I guess there was a previous like business student who was a gymnast that was in the show. And I had no idea. And he like walked down the stairs off stage in costume and just saw like my Penn State hat and was like, "We are!" backstage. And I was like so caught off guard and confused and like, who's talking to me? I don't know anybody here. And I was like, Penn State. Yeah, Penn State. So that was fun and caught me off guard for sure.
Amazing. Rob?
Oh, mine was, I was in Paris and I was walking by the river and I saw somebody with a Penn State thing and I just yelled, "We are!" And he said, "Penn State!" And I felt cocky. And then I saw somebody else at the Eiffel Tower with a Penn State thing. And I said, "We are!" And he just grabbed his kids and moved the other direction. I think he just got the jacket. I don't think he's from Penn State.
That is funny. Your favorite Penn State sport, Jim?
Football.
Ben?
So I do love football, but I was actually a Penn State lifeguard. So I might say swimming.
Amazing. Rob?
I love football, but women's basketball.
Excellent.
That is incredible.
Excellent. And the final question, your favorite flavor of creamery ice cream, Jim?
Butter pecan.
Ooh, that's a good one. Mine's the grilled sticky one. I really like the grilled sticky one.
Grilled sticky on special this week at the Berkey Creamery. If you're in town, stop by and get yourself a half gallon of sticky ice cream.
Jim,
I'll be there on Sunday. Send me your orders.
Are you really going to be there on Sunday?
Yeah, for stages.
Would you pick up ice cream if I gave you an order?
Yeah. Just text me.
Okay, great. Cookies and cream is mine. Cookies and cream.
Wonderful. Well, look, we are out of time, but I want to thank you all for joining us on the People of Penn State and allowing us to pass your story on to fellow Penn Staters. It's when Penn Staters like you allow us to tell your story that brings pride to Nittany Nation and elevates the value of all Penn State degrees. And so know that we're truly grateful.
Thank you,
Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for having us.
Good to see you.
And we want to thank you, our audience, for joining us. If you liked this episode, I hope that you'll subscribe to the People of Penn State podcast in your favorite podcast app of choice. And while you're there, go ahead and give us a rating and drop us a review. Help us spread the word and share the podcast to fellow Penn Staters through your social media channels. And of course, tag the Penn State Alumni Association with @Penn State Alums. If you're a member of the Penn State Alumni Association, thank you for your support. If not, what are you waiting for? Visit our website at alumni.psu.edu, and you too can become a member of the world's largest alumni association. Thanks for all you do for the glory, for the university, and for the future. We are
to one heart that loves thy name. May our lives but swell thy fame.
Dear Penn State,
Dear